What are sales questions that every coach, consultant, course creator, and B2B salesperson needs to answer? Find out on this week's Authentic Selling TV. In the words of RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, words matter. And in selling, words really matter, in the words of Kendrick Show. They really matter. So much so that when I went through corporate sales school, we had actual verbatims that we had to memorize. So if this, then you say these exact words. If you've ever been through a corporate sales school, you know what I'm talking about. Those verbatims where they scare the living daylights out of you. If you miss an A, an and, a the, you're going to fail, da, 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 da. You're going to get fired, da, 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 da. So words really matter in selling. And you see this when we talk about overcoming objections, right? Like there are actual verbatims. We have 19 tools for overcoming objections to help you as the salesperson work through, I can't afford it, I need to think about it, need to talk about it with my spouse, all the things. There are certain things that you need to say in that situation. But there are some questions that you also need to be able to answer for yourself and possibly ask your prospect or the person who's getting ready to buy your amazing product or service. Now, here's where this gets a little dicey. Here's where this gets a little interesting. I have noticed that people who are experts, no, that's not right. People who are claiming to be experts take these questions and they say they are the same across industries. So likely they've read a good old corporate selling book and they say, great, this book says to ask these questions, so we're going to apply that to the online world. There are questions that don't work in the online world. There are questions that you absolutely need to ask in the corporate world that do not work for online selling. I see them on applications all day long. And I really want to ask, who told you to put this here? Because they don't know what they're talking about. But I don't. So today we're going to talk about questions that you need to ask or answer, but also what questions do you need to avoid? What questions are corporate specific to get out of your coach, consultant, course creator questions. So questions that you need to answer or you need answers to. A great question to ask is, who are the decision makers? Now, that still feels a little awkward if you're talking about the online world with coaching and consulting, but with our sleep consultants, we see this all the time, right? You know, people will say, well, my husband has questions or my spouse would like to be on the phone. And so, especially in the sleep consulting industry, when you're scheduling calls, you could say, are there other people that take care of the child that need to be on the call that are going to, aid in making this decision? In the corporate world, are there other decision makers we need to bring into this conversation so that we don't have to waste everybody's time and do this 4,000 times? So, who's the decision maker is a question that works, check, ding, for both industries. Next up. What is it costing you not to solve this problem? Man, that's a question right there. It's a question. And while that can be used in the online world, I would recommend that you stay away from that question. Because this is a question that sort of has to be threaded like a needle. Think about the eye of a needle. You've got to do this with intention and you got to do it with care. And if you do it wrong, which, let's face it, most people are not experts at selling. You're expert at the amazing product or service that you offer. That's why you're watching this, to be a better salesperson. If you do it wrong, it's going to feel like you're using guilt to convince someone to buy from you. Now, in the corporate world, I think this is a great question because corporate world's about money, right? Show me the money. And so it's easy to justify an expense to bring in a consultant or pay for this incredible product or service if it's costing you actual dollars. But really, this question needs, the answer to this question, for this to work, needs to be lost revenue, missed revenue. It needs to do with money. What's it costing you not to solve this problem? And in the online industry, let's say that you are a fitness coach and I come to you and say, I want to get fit. I want to look hotter at 46 than I did at 18. And you're like, okay, great. What's it costing you not to solve this problem? And I'm like, well, I'm not as healthy as I could be. I eat a lot of frozen pizzas. I don't want to miss Hallianna growing up and die. Oh my gosh, like this just went somewhere I don't want to go. Now you may be thinking, yeah, this is great, right? They can see what it's costing them, but you've led them down a path that really feels gross. And so this question doesn't work unless you're talking about money. I mean, it can work. People teach you to use it all the time, but the answer to this question needs to be a lost revenue. So you can say, here's how we make up this revenue. Now, business coaches, you may be tempted to say, okay, great. Well, this works for me. Be careful. Because in our industry, there are a lot of big promises about money. There are a lot of big promises about get rich. And if you're going to say, what's this costing you in lost revenue? Then you need to be able to commit, you're going to make it back up in revenue. And I don't know many coaches that are willing to do that because there's so many external factors. So what's it costing you not to solve this problem? Probably not the best question for coaches and consultants. Great question for corporate. Great question for corporate. And if you're on the fence, you're like, I really want to use this, then can you make it be about the money? What's it costing you in lost revenue, missed clients, doctor's visits? Like make it about money so that we don't get into using guilt to sell. Because guilt's an amateur sales tool. You don't need it. It makes people feel gross. Don't use it. The next question is one that you need to be able to answer. Before you ask your potential customers, you need to be able to answer it. And this question can work for corporate. It can work for the online world. That question is, why is this important to solve now? Why is this urgent? Before you ask a potential customer or prospect this question, you need to answer it. I don't want you to share that with your client, but you need to know, why is it important that somebody solve this now? Why is it important that they give me their precious time, their precious hard-earned money to get a solution sooner rather than later? If you can't answer that, you're not sold on your product or service. You need to be able to answer it. You don't have to use that answer in selling, but you need to know. Because if you're not sold, if you're like, well, they could do it now, or they could do it later, or they could do it in 3 years, why is anybody ever going to do this? Again, you don't have to use that language, but this is a great sales exercise. Do you know why now? I'll give you an example. Yeah, it's true. You could invest in working with me as a sales consultant today, tomorrow, next month if I'm still doing this, next year if I'm still doing this. So how I would answer this, I wouldn't tell you this, but how I would answer this for myself is it's important that you solve this now, because until you learn to sell, you're not going to make as much money as you can. You're not going to help as many people as you can. So sooner rather than later means you help more people and you make more money. That's why we don't wait to solve a sales problem. That's why sales comes first. Now, I'm never going to say that to you, but knowing the difference that it makes for solving this problem now, sooner rather than later, means I am going to be a different type of salesperson. It means I'm going to be a salesperson who wants this for you, not just for me so I can make some money. I want this for you because it's going to change your life, because it's going to change your business, because it's going to change your health. And I know that waiting has a cost. Again, we're not saying this, but it helps you be sold on what you're doing. Now, do you ever ask this question to your prospect? You can. In the corporate world, why is this important to solve now? You better be careful asking that in the corporate world, because people may say, well, it isn't. It's not our highest priority. And then you're going to have to go into tools for overcoming objections. Thanks for sharing that with me. I understand it doesn't feel like the highest priority right now, but another way of looking at this is, and then you need to be able to talk to them about, why it's important to solve now. In the online world, you got to be careful here. This is one that you still have to be careful with, because you could get into guilt, right? But a great way to have this conversation is if you ask the question, which I don't ask the question, why is it important to solve now? Because I just feel like it opens up a can of worms that I don't want to open. But let's say that you like this question and want to ask this question. You also need to have the second part of this, which is exactly what I role modeled for corporate. You need to be able to understand if someone says, well, it's not, I just want to get it solved in the next 12 months. You need to be able to have sort of a head-to-head conversation that says, thanks for sharing that with me. I understand. Another way of looking at this is, if you continue to put your health last, or if you continue to blah, 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 this is what's going to happen. I don't usually teach to ask this in the online world because my people usually are not comfortable having those sort of head-on conversations, but you can ask it, but you don't need to. We have thousands of business owners who have been incredibly successful not asking this question. The next question, what's your budget? What is your budget? And like in the online world and applications, we're like 500 to 1,000, 5,000 to 10,000, 20,000 to 100,000. Budget? Are you kidding me? I'm broke. Oh my goodness, y'all. I loathe this question. I loathe it. I loathe it. I loathe it. Did you know I loathe this question? I kind of loathe it for corporate too, and I know that that's not popular, but I feel like it's a bad question. My answer to that question is going to be, my budget is as low and as cheap as possible to get a solution that works, right? Can you do it for free? Great. Is it going to work? Great. Is it going to be an integrity? Great. I'll take that one. Can you do it for $500? Yes. Is it going to be an integrity? Yes. Is it going to work? Great. I'll take that one. Can you do it for $60,000? I mean, like, it's a bad question. It's a bad question because people are going to want to save money, right? They're going to want to, well, as low as possible to get the results I want. The results are so much more important. So yeah, I can teach you to sell for $500. You're not going to get any one-on-one interaction with me. You're not going to get any feedback from me. You're going to get, some courses or some videos that work really well. And if you know how to apply them, you can learn to sell and you can make more money. Or you can pay me, $25,000 and I'll be your consultant and I'll do the work with you. And both teach you to sell. It's what you need. It's the accoutrements that you need. It's the things that go with it. How do you like to work? I got an option that'll work either one. 500, 25,000. What works for you, right? This also leads to a problem that so many people experience in the online world, which is you don't know the difference between your $500 offer and your $7,000 offer. So I can't tell you how many times my voice did something weird. I can't tell you how many times I've read copy and it's like the $500 offer is going to solve every problem you have when it comes to blah, 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 blah. But the $7,000 offer is going to solve every problem you have when it comes to blah, blah, blah. I'm like, why would I pay you $6,500 more if your copy says you can do it for $500? I will ask, who's the $500 offer for? Who's the $7,000 offer for? It's for the same person. Okay. I'm confused. Like, what's the point of having a $7,000 offer? And I had somebody say to me one time, well, I heard a sales expert say, you have a really low dollar offer, you have a really high price offer, and that'll force people to choose something in the middle. That's half of the story. If they're all doing the exact same thing, people are going to choose nothing, or they're going to choose your cheap one. So you need to make sure that your pricing structure doesn't cannibalize future sales. And be honest. I cannot imagine that a $500 offer does the exact same thing as a $7,000 offer. So you need to be really clear on the differences here. Really clear so that there's no confusion. So I don't love the budget question. I don't love it in corporate either. Like when I am sending a proposal to corporate about speaking, I do ask it sometimes, but I don't love it. Now, let's say that you are selling machinery, right? And we can have this machinery for actually, let me use a different example because I don't know a lot about machinery. But let's say that you're selling desks, right? And this desk is $5,000. But so that's the price. But then you can pay an extra $1,000 to have somebody come set it up, deliver it, assemble it, and carry out your own desk. And so you might say, what is your budget? Great, I've got this lovely desk within your budget. And then here are the add-ons. Or if you're selling machinery, right? They're looking for a cotton gin. I don't even know if cotton gin still exists, but just, again, I don't know about machinery, but they're looking for a cotton gin. Okay, well, I've got the cotton gin, supersonic, or I've got the cotton gin sonic, where you got to hand crank something. I mean, so budget can be a good question in corporate because it tells you where to go, but I think there's a better way to get there. What results are you looking to achieve? Why are you looking to replace your cotton gin kind of thing? So the budget question is a little bit of a tightrope. I don't ask it. These are what our prices are. This is what we can do for you. We're going to do it better than anybody else, period. I mean, when we get to negotiating on price, we miss the whole point here because it's not about price. I've said it once. I'll say it over and over and over. Nobody likes the price. They like the results. And if you think I am too expensive, I respect that. Hire an amateur and see what that costs you. I mean, I think about videographers with this, right? Like, how many years did I waste trying to film stuff myself, trying to save money? And I know maybe I didn't have the money, but I mean, like, I lost hours and hours and hours when I could have had so much time back by saying, yeah, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. So that's the reason, that's another reason the cost question, what's your budget, isn't always a good question. A great question for online business owners to ask, for corporate to ask, is what have you tried in the past? And what were the results? I guess that's two questions. But if I'm going to go in and bring in a new product or service to a business, I want to know how are they obviously have a need. How were they solving this in the past? If somebody's going to hire me to write their sales strategy, I want to know what's worked well in the past. What hasn't worked well? What have you tried? It's like the customer who said she did 5 webinars last year and none of them converted. Okay, did you have people sign up for the webinars? No. Okay, great. Then I know where we need to attack first. We've got a visibility issue. So what have you tried in the past? What were the results? Did it work? Did it not work? Great question to ask in corporate and in the online world. There's one more question that I love, and we don't ask this one a lot in the online world, but I love it. And it can feel a little, like when I say it, you're going to roll your eyes and think, oh my God, car salesman. And it can feel a little car salesman-y. So the energy with this has got to be really true and intentional. But how can we make this work? How can we make this as easy as possible, right? So yes, you do hear that when you're buying a car. But also, one of the things that I say oftentimes when I'm putting proposals together for one-on-one consulting work is I am happy to work with you. I'm happy to work with you on the price. I am happy to work with you. Actually, you would say investment. I'm happy to work with you on the investment. I'm happy to take the deposit and then, work with you on terms. Like, however we can make this as easy as possible for you. It shows that you're willing to come to the table. It shows that you're willing to negotiate a little bit, not negotiate on price, but negotiate so that this feels easier for people. The last thing you want is somebody strapping their budget to pay you for consulting, because then that creates desperate energy for money, and that's not a good look for anybody. Same thing in corporate. Look, I know, Mr. Corporate Person, Mrs. Corporate Person, that time is money. And I know that you all value having the time to blah, 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 blah. So how can we make this as easy on you as possible? You need a new cotton gin. What would make this easy? How do we get through the red tape of the decision-making process in an easy, cost-effective way so that we can get your cotton gin up and running? Cotton gins are probably outdated and don't exist anymore. Just get with the analogy. So these are all questions that I hear being taught to use when you are selling. And some of them are a fit for the online world, some of them are not. Some of them are a fit for the corporate world, and some are not. So take them. When you're done with this video, answer the question, why must people solve this now? Tell me in the comments. Why is it important that people solve that problem that your product solves now? Why is it important? Again, you don't have to use that language, but knowing the answer to that makes you a better salesperson. And before you answer that question, make sure you ring that bell below. Ring that bell. Ring that bell. And I believe in you, and I believe in your business. Bye, y'all.